Have you ever been punished for carrying light? Not because you did wrong, but because you dared to shine in a room that had gotten too comfortable with the dark? There are people watching this right now who know what it means to be targeted for your purity, isolated because of your calling, and betrayed because you wouldn't stay silent. You were not attacked because you were weak. You were attacked because the enemy saw your strength before you did. Heaven had already signed the scrolls before hell tried to silence your voice. There are documents in the Spirit, sealed records, written long before your birth, where God declared, "This one is mine. This one is marked. This one will not break when others bend." But the moment those words were spoken in eternity, a ripple went out across the spiritual realms, and it was heard by those who opposed the light. And that's when the plot began. Not on earth, not in a courtroom, but in the unseen places, in the shadows of the second heaven, where dark forces gather like a secret council, plotting the destruction of anyone who carries God's seal. You became a threat just by existing, and that's why the attacks came. Not randomly, but with chilling precision. Not because you failed, but because you dared to obey. Some of you watching this have survived betrayals that you still can't speak about. You trusted them. You covered them in prayer. You believed they were sent by God. But behind the smile was sabotage. Behind the handshakes were hidden knives. Behind the alliance was an agenda sent from hell. They touched the chosen, and they thought there would be no consequence. But let me prophesy this now. Every strike against the chosen one becomes evidence in the court of heaven. The slander, recorded. The sabotage, documented. The moments you were left bleeding in silence while pretending you were fine, written in the scrolls and sealed with the tears of angels. This is not just your story. This is a case file in heaven. The enemy wasn't just after your reputation. He was trying to bankrupt your future. But what hell didn't count on was that the very wound it caused would activate your courtroom. Because when you are chosen, pain has a purpose, and betrayal becomes a summons. What man calls destruction, God calls evidence. There are moments in your life where you wondered, "God, why didn't you stop them? Why did you let me walk into the lion's den?" But what you didn't know is that lions don't devour who God sends. They become witnesses to the anointing, and the den becomes a stage for deliverance. So now, heaven has pulled the file. The courtroom is being prepared, and the accuser of the brethren, the one who incited the attacks, is about to hear the verdict thunder through the spiritual realms. "Touch not my anointed, and do my prophets no harm." Psalm 105, verse 15. You weren't being destroyed, you were being positioned. This wasn't punishment, it was prophetic alignment, because every injustice done to you just made it impossible for heaven to stay silent any longer. Now the judge has stood up, and when the judge of all creation rises, no man can sit comfortably in their deceit. No attacker can hide behind a mask of charm. No enemy can silence what heaven has chosen to vindicate. You may have been silent, but now heaven is about to speak. You may have wept alone, but now angels are bearing witness. And what they thought they buried was really being planted. Before they called you strange, before they labeled you too much, before you were misunderstood, silenced, or cast aside, there was a voice, not of man, not of angels, but the voice of the Ancient of Days. And he whispered your name into the fabric of eternity. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you. Jeremiah 1:5. This wasn't poetry, it was paperwork. This was not just a verse, it was your assignment slip in heaven's archives. Long before your heartbeat began to echo in your mother's womb, heaven had already drawn up blueprints with your name on them. You were never random. You were never optional. You were chosen. When Joseph was just a boy with a dream, the dream wasn't an accident. It was a memory of heaven bleeding through his soul. When David was forgotten in a field, writing psalms to the wind, he was actually in training for throne room warfare. When Esther was just a young woman in captivity, her beauty wasn't her only weapon. Her obedience was preloaded into her spirit before she ever knew what courage meant. Chosen ones don't arrive. They are revealed. From birth, the chosen carry an aroma that makes hell restless. And that's why your childhood wasn't normal. That's why you've always felt different. Why you cried over things others ignored. Why your spirit stirred when others were numb. Because something in you remembered. Something deeper than your mind could understand. You were set apart. When others ran with crowds, you walked alone. When they laughed at sin, you wept over it. When the world tempted you to conform, something in you refused to bow, not out of pride, but because your spirit knew, I was born for more than this. You've always felt watched, not by man, but by heaven, not stalked, but shepherded, because the mark on your life is visible in the spirit realm. Demons can see it, destiny can't ignore it, and those who walk in darkness, even if they don't know why, feel the burn when you walk into the room. You are not normal. You never were. There is a frequency your life hums with, a vibration that resonates with heaven's throne room. Your laughter has weight, your tears have language. Your presence shifts the room because you carry the residue of divine origin. You weren't formed in dysfunction. You were forged in glory. Yes, you were born through man, but you were sent by God. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit. John 15:16. This is not religion. This is recognition. The chosen do not beg for validation. They walk in revelation. And yet this truth offends those who were never awakened. Because when the chosen one awakens, darkness begins to tremble. When you begin to walk in what heaven wrote, every demonic agreement made against your bloodline starts to break. The chains don't like your freedom. The curses don't like your calling. The cycles of shame, addiction, confusion. They scream when a chosen one says, I remember who I am. You are not becoming. You are returning. Returning to your identity. Returning to your authority. Returning to the echo that whispered your name before time began. You were not just born. You were deployed. You are a divine weapon wrapped in flesh, awakened for such a time as this. And no matter who denied it, your ex, your family, your culture, or even your old self, heaven's word will not return void. You thought it was just jealousy. You thought it was just life. You thought the betrayal, the sabotage, the attacks were just people being people. But what if I told you, the moment heaven whispered your assignment, hell formed a council? Not in flesh, but in the spirit. Not in public, but in private. Not with noise, but with ancient silence. And the agenda was clear. Stop the chosen one before they remember who they are. This isn't poetic metaphor. This is classified intelligence from the spirit realm. Behind the heartbreak was a demonic endorsement. Behind the false friend was a spiritual assassin. Behind the anxiety, the delay, the confusion, was a spiritual algorithm sent to derail your assignment. You've been under attack not because of where you were, but because of where you were headed. The Council of Darkness has always feared the rise of a remembered identity. And you, beloved, were dangerous the moment your feet hit this earth. There is a spiritual espionage system that has monitored you since childhood. Not with cameras, but with curses. Not technology, but trauma. They sent assignments. They disguised them as people. That teacher who crushed your voice in school, they weren't just strict. They were recruited to silence you. That relationship that drained you of identity that wrapped you in false love? That wasn't just a mistake. It was a trap disguised as comfort. That season of depression that came out of nowhere, it was an arrow dipped in delay, sent by a spirit that knew if you ever rose, they would fall. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Ephesians 6:12. The war was never about your name, it was about your scroll. The darkness doesn't mind lukewarm religion. The darkness fears a chosen one who remembers their assignment. There are spiritual realms, deep, ancient, cold, where unclean spirits study bloodlines. They trace the patterns. They whisper old lies. They search for open doors. Why? Because the moment they sense a chosen one awakening, they launch the council. The Council of Darkness operates like a black market intelligence agency. They specialize in strategic delays, emotional sabotage, identity erosion, cycles of sin to break spiritual momentum, betrayals at critical seasons of transition. They can't kill you, so they try to break your agreement with your destiny because they know a chosen one who believes the lie is just as powerless as one who never knew the truth. That's why the warfare has been so specific. Why does the rejection feel so personal? Why does the delay hit your exact weakness? Because it's not random, it's researched. You weren't just hurt, you were profiled. Your destiny was flagged in the spirit, and the enemy decided, if I can't destroy them, I'll distract them. If I can't defeat them, I'll disqualify them with shame, with confusion, with trauma. But let me tell you something the darkness doesn't want you to know. They already lost the moment you survived, because every false alliance only trained your discernment. Every heartbreak only sharpened your hearing. Every season of silence only taught you how to lean into the whisper of God. You are not a victim of the darkness. You are a weapon forged by fire. You didn't just walk through the shadows. You exposed them. And now, heaven is preparing to issue a divine counterstrike. The council that tried to silence you will now become the stage where your vindication is announced. The trap they set will become the trumpet that declares, this one belongs to the King. There is a moment in the journey of every chosen one when the sky no longer answers. No lightning, no wind, no burning bush. Only silence. Have you been there? When your prayers echo back like unanswered voicemails in heaven's inbox? When the warfare intensifies but the presence of God feels absent? When every step forward feels like walking blindfolded through fire? You ask questions no one can answer. God, where are you? Did I miss you? Why did you speak so loudly before, only to go quiet now? And in that silence, the enemy speaks louder. He doesn't shout, he hisses. God left you. You were never chosen. Your pain is proof he changed his mind. But let me tell you a secret, beloved. Heaven's silence is not heaven's absence. The teacher is always silent during the test. And this test isn't to prove your weakness. It's to reveal your endurance. Job knew this silence. A man with favor, suddenly stripped, family gone, wealth gone, health gone, and heaven said nothing. David knew this silence. Anointed in private, rejected in public, hunted like prey by a man he served faithfully. And the only voice he could hear was his own weeping in the cave. Jesus knew the silence. Hanging between heaven and earth, nails in his hands, betrayal in his heart, and all he could cry was, my God, why have you forsaken me? Matthew 27:46. But even in that cry, God was closer than breath, because what you don't realize is that in the silence, heaven is watching. Angels are taking notes. The courtroom is observing your posture. The scroll is being updated, not by your success, but by your stillness under pressure. Anyone can praise when the blessing comes, but can you trust when the sky is quiet? Can you worship when you feel forgotten? Can you obey when the oil has stopped flowing? This is where the chosen are separated from the crowd. In the silence, your roots grow deep. In the silence, your appetite is refined. In the silence, your dependency shifts from applause to presence. Because when God seems silent, He's often whispering below the surface. He's pruning. He's testing the motives. He's separating the noise of your gifting from the purity of your obedience. You thought you were waiting on God, but just maybe, God was waiting on you, waiting on the version of you who wouldn't perform for validation, waiting on the you who didn't need the stage to prove your worth, waiting on the you who prays with fire even when no one is watching. This is the wilderness where mantles are born. This is the silence where scrolls become scrolls of war. And when the silence ends, it doesn't end with a whisper. It ends with divine thunder. So don't curse the silence. It's the sound of God building a voice in you that hell can't mute. There is a moment in the life of the chosen when heaven leans forward. A rustling begins in the archives of eternity. Scrolls are retrieved, wounds are re-examined, and without warning, the law of return activates. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6:7. This isn't karma. This isn't superstition. This is the judicial system of the kingdom of heaven. When someone speaks death over a chosen one, they are not speaking into the wind. They are speaking into a courtroom. Every word is weighed. Every action is recorded. Every motive is judged. You see, the law of return is not revenge. It is holy compensation. It's heaven saying, you don't need to fight. I already saw it all. Vengeance is mine. I will repay. Romans 12:19. This law moves in silence, but once it's activated, it does not miss. What they spoke about you in secret begins to echo back into their atmosphere. The trap they dug becomes the hole they fall into. The curses they whispered begin to hang in their own house. The stones they threw begin to return one by one with angelic velocity. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26:27. Heaven does not forget the ridicule, the manipulation, the isolation. All of it has a return address. Because when you are chosen, the law works differently. The attack may have looked successful in the moment, but God was letting the enemy build the case against himself. Every false accusation becomes evidence. Every betrayal becomes a breadcrumb leading to divine reversal. And here's the mystery. The law of return doesn't just punish the enemy, it repositions the chosen. Because when heaven restores, it doesn't give you back what you lost. It gives you more than what was taken. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. Isaiah 61:7. So what does that mean for you? It means the nights you wept in silence were not wasted. It means the moments you bit your tongue when you could have exposed them were powerful weapons. It means the restraint you showed has now become a summons for heaven's judgment. God does not let the chosen suffer without recompense. He may wait, he may test, but he never ignores. And once the scales shift, the return begins to ripple. Doors shut for those who mocked you. Favor dries up for those who used you. Opportunities vanish for those who conspired against you. And all the while, you rise, not in pride, not in bitterness, but in proof. Because nothing silences the enemy like elevation. And yet, this isn't just about their downfall. This is about your ascension. Because when God activates the law of return, He's not just exposing your enemies, He's preparing your seat at the table. This is not metaphor. This is not myth. This is legal reality in the realm of the Spirit. Welcome to the heavenly courtroom. Here, robes are white with righteousness. Here, the judge does not sleep. Here, silence holds weight, and every tear has legal standing. When the chosen are attacked, when false witnesses rise, when betrayals try to rewrite destiny, heaven convenes a session. The scrolls are unsealed. The angels take their place. The judge steps forward and says, "Present the evidence." And what is brought before him is not just the offense, but the obedience of the chosen one in the face of injustice. Angels speak up. He prayed through betrayal. She prays through heartbreak. They stayed silent while being slandered. They passed the test while the world thought they were being punished. This courtroom does not run on earthly laws. It runs on covenant. And when covenant is broken against the chosen, the judge does not delay. Shall not the judge of all the earth do right? Genesis 18:25. This is the moment when what was done in shadows gets dragged into the light. Every betrayal, documented, every lie, brought forth, every tear, collected in vials and poured out as legal proof of endurance. And then, the scroll with your name is opened, and the judge reads aloud what the enemy tried to erase. This one is mine. This one was faithful. This one carries purpose not yet fulfilled. And heaven thunders a verdict. Restitution shall come, honor shall rise, and no weapon formed against this one shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. The enemy protests, but the judge silences him, because no accusation can stand against what the blood of the Lamb has already covered. Who shall bring any charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Romans 8:33. Now watch closely, because what happens next shifts everything. A new scroll is handed down, not of judgment, but of promotion. Heaven decrees that what was meant for evil shall now be used for acceleration. The courtroom echoes with the sound of assignment. The stone they rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. You prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Psalm 23:5. This is divine reversal. This is the heavenly decree. This is what the enemy feared from the beginning. The chosen didn't just survive. The chosen qualified. Because in this courtroom, survival is not the goal. Ascension is. And now, the judge stamps the scroll. Case closed. You didn't just survive. You endured. You didn't just weep. You waited. And because you waited, without vengeance, without compromise, heaven has now released the next phase. Restoration and public honor. This isn't a quiet apology. This isn't a backstage blessing. This is God preparing a table right in front of the same ones who said you wouldn't make it. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Psalm 23:5. The very mouths that mocked you now go silent. The very voices that discredited you now must watch as heaven crowns you. This is not for your ego. This is for God's justice. Because the oil you carry now was forged in secret, every tear became a drop in your flask. Every no became fuel for the yes of God. Every delay became interest on your inheritance. Now, the scales have tipped. The shame you carried in private becomes honor in public. The wounds they laughed at become weapons of glory. The silence you endured becomes a megaphone for breakthrough. And here's the part they never saw coming. Your restoration is not just return, it's redemption. You're not just getting back what was stolen. You're being upgraded beyond what you knew to ask for. Because God doesn't restore to where you were. He restores to where you were meant to be. I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. Joel 2:25. You thought the years were wasted. Heaven calls them redeemable time. You thought the relationships that died were the end. God saw them as necessary pruning. You thought the silence meant he forgot you. He was preparing to announce you at the perfect time. Because when God restores, he doesn't whisper. He announces, "Then your light shall break forth like the dawn, and your healing shall spring up speedily." Isaiah 58:8. He announces you in front of the crowd that thought you were finished. He lifts your head when you forgot how to hold it high. He dresses your wounds, not in rags, but in robes, because you are not just restored, you are crowned. You are not just vindicated, you are commissioned. And now the ones who thought your name was buried must bow their heads as heaven lifts you up, not to boast, not to gloat, but to show the world that faithfulness still has a reward, that obedience still has a crown, and that those who trust the process, even when crushed, will rise in glory. What if the betrayal wasn't the end, but the beginning? What if the storm you thought would break you was heaven's way of building a platform beneath your feet? What if the pain was prophecy in disguise? Chosen one, you weren't just being attacked, you were being prepared. For what? For others. Because God never raises a chosen one just to restore them. He raises them to carry the fire, to heal, to deliver, to build, to proclaim. What the enemy used to wound you, God now anoints to flow through you. Your scars have become keys. Your silence has become strategy. Your testimony has become territory. They overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Revelation 12:11. Your voice carries weight now, not because of what you memorized, but because of what you survived. You don't just carry revelation, you are the revelation. You've been authorized in the courts of heaven to speak into places others can't. You've been handed scrolls that are meant for nations. This is why the warfare was never about the moment you were in. It was about the movement you were carrying. Heaven was trying to birth a voice that hell would never be able to silence. And now you don't speak from theory, you speak from fire. You don't just comfort others with cliches. You comfort them with the same oil you cried for in the cave. He comforts us in all our affliction so that we may comfort those who are in any trouble. 2 Corinthians 1:4. Because now, when someone comes to you saying, "I've been betrayed, I've been forgotten, I've been attacked," you can look them in the eye and say, "Me too, but I made it, and so will you." This is your greater mission, not to parade your survival, but to pass the torch, not to show off your deliverance, but to deliver others. You are now more than a survivor. You are a vessel of authority. The mantle on your life is heavier, the weight of your words is deeper, and the places God is sending you now, they need the version of you that walked through the wilderness and came out with fire. This is why God had to allow the breaking, because a message without the breaking is just noise. But a message that's been pressed in the winepress of betrayal, pain, and perseverance, that message sets captives free. So now the platform is being built, not of pride, but of purpose, not of ambition, but of authority, not of look at me, but of let me lead you to him. Let me talk to you now. Yes, you who have wept in silence, you who smiled for the world while screaming inside, you who asked God if you were forgotten, if the pain had purpose. You're not here by accident. You didn't stumble onto this message by coincidence. Heaven drew you, and if you're still watching, it's because this isn't a sermon. It's a summons to remember. To remember that you were marked before you were wounded, that you were called before you were criticized, that you were seen before you were silenced. I know what it's like to question everything, to look at the people who hurt you and wonder, God, why didn't you stop them? To feel the weight of a calling you never asked for, to watch others soar while you bleed in secret. But let me tell you something the enemy never wanted you to hear. You didn't lose. You were being forged. You didn't break. You were being rebuilt. And the pain, it wasn't pointless. It was preparation. There is a fire burning in you right now. Not because I'm speaking, but because heaven is waking you up. Waking you up to your scroll. Waking you up to your authority. Waking you up to your identity. You are not weak. You are not crazy. You are not too late. You are chosen. The attacks were real, yes, but so is the anointing. The abandonment happened, yes, but so did the appointment. And now you stand at a threshold. You can go back, or you can break through. You can return to the familiar, or you can step into your fire. There is a generation waiting for your yes, a territory waiting for your surrender, a sound that only your life can release. This is not hype. This is heaven's call. So I ask you, beloved, are you ready to remember? Are you ready to forgive? Not to excuse the wrong, but to release yourself from it. Are you ready to stop hiding your scars and start using them as keys? Because the moment you do, everything shifts. You begin to walk different, pray different, speak different, not because you learned something new, but because you remembered who you were all along. So lift your head, dry your tears, put your hand on your chest, and say these words out loud. Even if your voice shakes, I am chosen, I am covered, I am called, and I will not go back. Let that be the declaration that unlocks your scroll. Chosen one, this is your moment. The scroll has been unsealed. The oil has been released. The verdict has been declared. And now, you must decide. Will you walk away from your mantle? Or will you take your place in the army of the awakened? Because this is not a time for spectators. This is a time for soldiers. No more delaying your destiny. No more dancing with doubt. No more shrinking in shame. The Lion of Judah is roaring inside of you, and the gates of hell are trembling. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. James 4:7. That's not a suggestion. That's a war cry. You've been trained in the wilderness, refined in the fire, vindicated in the courtroom. Now it's time to advance in authority. Raise your voice, lift your head, and hear the Spirit of God saying, "Come forth, chosen one. Take your place, wield your sword, and do not fear their faces." Jeremiah 1:8. You were never meant to blend in. You were born to break through. You were never meant to survive quietly. You were forged to shake kingdoms. You carry scrolls, not scars. You walk in fire, not fear. You speak with thunder, not timidity. This generation doesn't need another influencer. It needs intercessors. It needs prophets. It needs carriers of fire. It needs you. So here's the call. Forgive those who hurt you, not for their sake, but for heaven's sake. Release the bitterness. Heaven has better. Let go of the old labels. God is giving you a new name. Stand up, speak, prophesy, pray, building, deliver, preach, move. Because this isn't the end of your story. This is the commissioning. Heaven is backing you. Angels are surrounding you. And the earth is groaning for the sound of your obedience. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. Isaiah 61. You are not disqualified. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are on time, on purpose, and on fire. So rise now, not just inspired, but ignited, and walk out of the wilderness with scrolls in your hand, fire in your eyes, and glory on your life. Because the final word does not belong to your past. It belongs to the one who called you before the foundation of the world.